And so there is some advantage and disadvantage to staying put in a place or in a relationship or in a job, because there is some continuity, some familiarity that sometimes is soothing, where change or new or different can be the disadvantage of unsettling or the advantage of adventure. What we're getting at is that you have choices beyond how you feel about a place or how you feel about a person or how you feel about a location. You have many more choices than you usually are exercising or practicing, because you can, especially after you get good at it, you can find positive aspects because you want to, not because they're obvious. Like treasures, not hidden treasures, just less obvious treasures. It's about focusing. It's about fine-tuning. It's about being deliberate. Whether anyone knows it or not, they are emanating a vibration, and the law of attraction is responding to it, and they are therefore attracting or creating their own immediate relationship with whatever. In broad terms, we say creating your own reality, but what we really mean is you're having an experience with aspects of your life all day, every day. And you have more options for focus than most of you are exercising. Because almost everyone, rather than being a deliberate creator, is more often than not a creator by default. Meaning, you're responding to something. You're having a knee-jerk reaction to something. That's why you want to control conditions, or you want someone to control conditions. That's why you want to blame conditions when they don't feel good to you, or you want to blame those that you believe are responsible for conditions. But that is entrapment. That is creating with such lack of control that it will lead to greater and greater momentum of negative emotions. You'll go down all the way down the emotional scale. You may be at contentment, but you'll end up at fear. And it doesn't take much focusing in opposition to how you really want to feel or to how your inner being right now does feel before the law of attraction begins 17 seconds intervals at a time to give you increasingly negative, or, depending on which way you're focused, increasingly positive results or responses, life responses to your chosen point of attraction. Your chosen point of attraction. Because you are choosing even if you choose not to choose. If you decide not to be deliberate, if you decide, as many of you are deciding, this is just too hard. I've given it my best and it isn't working. And we say, it never reaches the point that there isn't a turning point. Perhaps it would be helpful for you to understand there's no one giant turning point. It's many, 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 many intermittent turning points. It really is as simple as caring about how you feel now and doing your best now to feel better. But in all of this conversation of you are the creator of your own reality, and the law of attraction is always responding to the vibration that you're emanating, and whatever you're offering, more like it is coming to you. And you get what you think about whether you want it or not. With all of these words that you have heard coming from us to you and from all of your responses to it. The thing that we most want you to hear right here and now is that if you've decided, and some of you have decided by default because you haven't decided otherwise. In other words, if you're not choosing to be happy, you're choosing by default to be not happy. If you're not choosing to be deliberately focused, you're choosing by default not to. You got to decide, is this world that you are living in going to get you by the tail and just whip you around? Are you a cork bobbing on a wild and raging body of water out of control? Or do you have the ability to focus? And we know you do. Or are you in an attitude of arguing for your limitations because right here, right now, your choices feel more limited to you? And so we're wanting to begin this conversation here today by assuring you that your choices are not limited. And when you argue for limitation, you're headed right down the emotional scale every single time, to the point of really coming to believe that others have control over you, or that it's just your fate for things not to go well. You come up with ridiculous stories of unworthiness. Some of you are just whining and complaining, arguing for your limitations. That word whining, we don't mean disrespect, but we do want to get your attention with it. Are you just venting your dissatisfaction with your own not yet practiced ability to focus into a thought that gives you some relief? Because that is the complete scenario of what deliberate creating is. It is in any moment in time being able to make a conscious choice of feeling a little better or feeling a little worse. And we know for sure that you are never without the ability to make that choice. However, you may not have decided to make that choice. You may just be tired, worn out, defeated. You may have decided to blame somebody else for your not understanding something or for your not being able to apply it. But you have an inner being who's always got your back, who knows everything you want, and who's always focused in the direction of that. And so, if you feel negative emotion, when you feel negative emotion, that's guidance, letting you know you could make a better feeling choice. And right now, when you are aware that you don't feel so good, is an excellent time to make that choice, because you can tell what feels a little better and what feels a little worse. You didn't sign on to this life experience to be a reactor. You signed on to be a creator, a deliberate creator. You didn't say, I'll observe and react. You said, I'll observe and decide. Now, you might say that a decision is a reaction. That would be fair. But we would want to add a decision to react is not a knee-jerk reaction. It's a getting out ahead of it reaction. It's a I create my own reality reaction. It's a decisive attitude that will serve you so well. If you just decide that you're going to feel better, or decide that you're going to understand this, or decide that you can figure it out, or decide, there is so much power in decision, because you've decided this and this and this and this and this. Hear this. Every time you knew what you didn't want, you decided a bit about what you did want. And every time that happened to you, which was hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times in this one physical life experience, Every time that life experience provided for you that vibrational decision, your inner being stood with your decision and stands with your decision and broadcasts about that decision. And that's why you can feel the discord when you are going against your own decision. We are not saying that there are not things that happen that sort of blindside you or catch you off guard. During what Esther calls her preparation time, she sets hours aside to focus and to allow us to consider. But it's a serious tuning experience for Esther. She tunes so that that can happen, so that that which she is, which is the receiver and translator, is tuned to the broadcaster. It matters. That's why this happens the way it does. And just a few minutes before, she received a phone call from another city where she has a house, and it was the utility company saying that they'd hit a gas line in an adjacent property, and they needed immediate access to her property. Well, Esther is not there, has not been there in a while, and no one is there. And so it was unsettling. How urgent is this? It sounded urgent. Esther said, there are 2 people I can call. One of them will surely be available. Turns out both of them were, but it was unsettling. It was unsettling to hear it. At first, Esther thought, what is wrong with you people? This is the 3rd time in about a month that someone has hit a gas line. Is anyone watching what they're doing? All right, that's Esther's knee-jerk reaction. But the way she felt in the midst of that reaction was all the indication that she needed that it was time to make another decision. What are you going to do? Are you going to make a decision to help, or are you going to make a decision to hinder? Now, this sounds obvious because somebody needs to call somebody who needs to call somebody who needs to call somebody. In other words, somebody needs to give access to that property. There are big gates and high fences at this property. You can't just get in. Someone has to give access to get in. But we want you to feel that you are the one who always grants the access to deny or allow the help or the hindrance in every single situation. And the way you feel is your indicator. So Esther's blindsided feeling was, wait a minute, you're interfering with something that's important to me, which is alignment. And then she's remembering, I can find alignment no matter what. Alignment is my decision. So here's the question. Does path of least resistance to me mean most familiar, easiest in terms of action? Or does path of least resistance mean to me alignment with source? Because they're very different questions. What is easier. It's easier to stay home than to go on vacation. But are there things about going on vacation that enhance my life enough that I want to go on vacation? These choices, these path of least resistance choices, are in your mix constantly. Path of least resistance, meaning not what will take less effort. There are other things that make the path of least resistance be different than just staying put because it's easier. So many delicious things that the path of least resistance is not just staying here. Surrender the now to the new. Surrender the sameness to the moreness. Surrender the apprehension to the adventure.